Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Lifestyle CEO Show. I'm your host, Donna Maria Coles Johnson, the original Lifestyle CEO, and you have arrived at the one place on your internet dial where we empower you to break all the rules, build your own corporate ladder, and create the life you love. And you know what that means, you Lifestyle CEOs out there. It means that we give you the tools that you need to grow your business into a successful enterprise. And following along with our subject matter for the month, we're going to talk more about publicity. That's right, publicity. It's hot and humid outside, and we have got to rev up our engines to make sure that we get our small businesses the publicity that they deserve. Today's show is sponsored by the Handmade Beauty Network and Monave Mineral Makeup. At Monave Mineral Makeup, you can get mineral makeup that covers your skin beautifully and flawlessly. It's carmine-free, animal product-free, and dye-free. Visit their website at monave.com. That's MONAVE.com. Well, like I said, everyone, today we are following on our subject of getting media attention for your business. Last week we had a media press release, a publicist who was talking about how to get your business featured in the holiday media. The week before that, we had a publicist who specializes in cosmetics and women's products. And today we are following that up with a great guest who is an expert in the art of writing and distributing press releases. That's right. Today we have Mickie Kennedy from eReleases.com. Mickie is a creative writer. He has a creative writing degree from George Mason University, and he wrote for several years at a research firm in the Washington, D.C. area in their PR department, and he handled all of their PR efforts. And in the mid-1990s, of course, he noticed, like many of us did, that many journalists wanted to see email delivery of press releases rather than mail or fax or however else they were sent. And this trend became the inspiration for his business, which again is eReleases.com. And Mickie helps people to write press releases and distribute them in effective ways so that you're not just wasting your time with a bunch of ink on some paper. Mickie from eReleases, welcome to the show today.
Oh, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Well, it certainly is great to have you here. Now, let's talk for a minute about your background and how you came to start eReleases. Tell us a little bit about your introduction to PR and when you discovered that you had a real knack for it.
Great. I guess when I was pursuing a Master's of Fine Arts at George Mason University, I was looking for a day job, and I applied to lots of places in the D.C. area, and found out that there's not a lot of jobs that have the creative writing background that they're looking for. But there was one company that was involved in technical writing and research, and so I sort of started there, and at first started out doing analytical writing and research, and they found that they needed some PR to be developed, and so the first thing I did was reached out to local PR firms and tried to find some that were interested in doing business with us. Mm-hmm. And what I found was that most PR firms weren't interested in doing business with us in the capacity that we were looking for. We were a small company, very lean, and basically we were looking for someone to develop press releases for us and to get them out to the media. Mm-hmm. What we found was, we'd love to work for your company. We start with a 6-month campaign at $20,000 or $30,000, or in some cases it was as much as $80,000 for a year, 6-month campaign. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't what we were looking for. So we decided that we would have to, take this PR effort and sort of develop it in-house. And I was the person who felt that I was up to the job. And basically I looked and schooled myself in what are press releases, what's the style of a press release, what are the different modes in getting that press release out in front of the media. And I saw that both developing your in-house database, which is what every good PR firm does, as mm-hmm. well as disseminating your release over the newswire, it seems to be the norm as far as like getting your message out. And so that's sort of what we did. I worked at developing key databases with journalists in the different fields that we were sending stuff out to. Mm-hmm. And of course, some of these were writers who've already written about us and we already had a relationship with, and others were journalists that we knew who wrote about the types of subjects that our research firm was in. And as we developed this database and we're sending out releases via fax and by snail mail, we were getting more and more requests from journalists saying, "Hey, I got your press release via fax, and could you shoot it over via email? Because I'd rather just cut and paste large chunks of it or work from it through that method." Mm-hmm. And so we found that our database was changing over from fax and snail mail to predominantly email over a matter of a few months to a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of where I got the idea of managing an email list and an email subscribing database would be a much cheaper and probably more immediate way to reach media. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of where e-releases, the idea for e-releases got started. The types of things that I did there at the research company was developing the press releases, sending it out to the media, fielding calls with the media, and also picking up the phone and actually pitching particular editors and journalists our story or basically what the meat of the press release was. We just released a new research report, and this is why it's important to you and why it's important to your readers. And here are some highlights of the report that we felt are really interesting. Mm-hmm. And by following those guidelines, we found it pretty easy to get publicity and PR. It's not that we got a huge amount, but we got a lot of pickups in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, The Economist, a lot of really key financial business publications, mm-hmm. as well as a lot of industry-related trade publications that we got picked up in as well.
So before you started e-releases, you were working for a company that was running into the same issue that a lot of listeners to today's show run into, and that is you're sort of growing. You're just about big enough to start getting some favorable publicity, but you're still too small to pay the retainer of $5,000 a month.
Right, and unfortunately, the people who do find PR firms that are willing to work within their budget, they often find that what they're getting isn't really cost effective for them. I talked to a nonprofit recently that spent about $7,000 or $8,000. With someone who was willing to take them on, even though they generally don't work with people on that small of a contract. Mm-hmm. And what I found was none of their press releases ever got issued to any newswire. And I checked the wires for their press releases, and they were not there. And they said, we never got any press that I'm aware of, during that entire 6 months. So it's sort of a catch-22 when you do find a firm that's willing to work with you on such a small budget. You got to be really clear of what it is that you're actually paying for. Is it just the writing and sending to a few key media points? Does it also include the newswire component as well? Because that's really an important distribution to get as well as any key database or custom database that you have.
Right, and we're going to talk about that too. And the first step is obviously to write the press release. And what you're kind of describing is, one of the categories of services, I guess, that you can get is for people who just write it for you, and then you have to figure out how to distribute it on your own.
Right. And we do offer writing services as well as distribution services. Occasionally, about 4 or 5 times a year, we'll get a press release that someone wants written but not distributed through us. And sometimes those people will later distribute through us, but other times they just have different reasons in which they want to release written and not disseminated.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second before we talk about like the nuts and bolts of writing. I know there are several reasons why a company would want a press release prepared. Obviously, one is to distribute to the media, but what are some of those other reasons that press releases may be valuable short of actually, putting them on a newswire or distributing them to media outlets?
Yeah, some people are attracted to press releases because it's custom, targeted, key messages that are keyword rich that they can put on their website. So all of a sudden they have these custom press releases on their website that talk of, sort of like announcements about things that the company's doing. And what they'll find is that these become gateway pages for search engines to spider content and look for it. And what's really important here is, unique content. Mm-hmm. One of the catch-22s about when you disseminate a press release all over the world is sometimes you'll have the same press release on 20 or 30 websites. And that may not help you in search engine rank because search engines see that as duplicate content. So some people who don't want to distribute the release are basically looking at it. Here's really well-crafted content that our users will see on our website, as well as search engines who are spotting it, and that unique content is really valuable for that. Other reasons that we've had in the past to do that is, press releases being put together for a press kit that might be given to investors. And we actually had a company that called us and said, our founder is on Europe, and he's doing basically a tour for getting some investment dollars, and we need a press kit with, say, 12 to 14 press releases. And I'm like, okay, great. When do you need it? And he goes, as soon as possible today, if at all possible.
Yesterday, of course.
Right. And so they wanted everything. We actually developed a plan and went back and said, here's a press release that we're in date for a year and a half ago, pretending that, well, it's not really pretending, but here's a press release that would be announcing your company. And, so-and-so announces the company, this is our goals. And so what we did was we went back and created a history of the company through press releases so that, when the people looked at the press kit, they got a real feel for the history and background of the company, key management hires, key partnerships throughout the years, and things like that. So that's another reason why it's important. It probably would have been much more beneficial to them to have actually developed those releases over the year and a half and actually distributed them, because they could have gotten some key press coverage during that year and a half. But I suspect that they were now at a point where they were looking for real funding dollars, that they probably didn't have the money a year and a half ago to start those PR efforts. So,
yeah, and let's focus on that just for a second, Mickie, because I think what you're saying, I'm so glad you made that point. I think it's so important to remind people that as your company is growing, and yeah, you may not have even the small amount of money that's needed to actually have a professional prepare the release,
right. It's
really important to start thinking in those terms, because when you document the history of your company, then you have a valuable piece of data that you can use for a variety of different reasons: media, potential investors, even customers coming, trying to get a sense of who you are and getting a sense of, like, a feel of trust for you when they're going to buy from you, right?
Right. I mean, press releases add a lot of credibility to a website.
Credibility.
Yeah, we've been to a lot of websites, and we've never done business with them, and you're like, are these guys legitimate? And to actually click on their website and say, here's a company that has drafted press releases over X amount of time, and, they're really serious about, getting the message out about them.
Right.
Here's a little bit of background, different key milestones that they've had over the past period of time. And that really does lend a bit of credibility to clients and customers, as well as potential partners and other people that you might have a relationship, whether it be investors or partners or even sponsors and clients.
Great points. And we're going to come back after our first break and talk about the nuts and bolts of actually writing that press release. This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. We're here today with Mickie Kennedy of eReleases.com, and he's sharing his expertise about writing and distributing press releases. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO Show. We are dancing as fast as we can here because we have so much information to cover with my guest today, Mickie Kennedy of E-Releases, who, by the way, you guys, is, like many of us, also a parent. Mickie, tell me about how many kids you have and just generally how do you balance all this home-based business stuff with fatherhood? And happy Father's Day, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I have 2 children. I have a little girl who will be 4 in August. Her name is Mira, and then I have a little boy named Rowan who is a year and a half old. And it's a bit of struggle. I'm sure as any parent has juggling career with children. But I have a great wife who is taking some time off from her career and is staying home with the children, which makes it a lot easier. I do work from home, but one of the benefits I had recently is we just moved into a new home that we had built, just taking my business in mind. So we have a whole 2,000 square foot office sort of wing to the house that is set up just like any office space. But it does allow me to take lunches with the children as well as spending a little time during the day with the children.
Oh, that's so great. And that's, of course, what the Lifestyle CEO is always all about, is being the CEO of your business and your lifestyle. And what an inspiration that is that everyone can aspire to who's looking to grow their business to that point. Let's get on with the press release issue, too, Mickie. We can talk for a second about, if you would, what are the things to think about when you're preparing a press release? What do you put into your brain before you start writing?
I think one of the most important things, I guess, to put into your brain before you write the press release is to write the press release for the actual journalists and editors, and not write it for the end users. And while a lot of people don't, it's hard to sort of distinguish between the two. When I get a press release that's basically written for consumers, it sort of screams at you. It's usually one with a lot of exclamation marks throughout it, a lot of advertising-type copy and snappy, almost pun-ridden headlines that are very playful. And while those things might be engaging in a marketing or sales copy or an actual article that's written to an end user, it generally turns off journalists and editors. So what you want to do is to basically, it's a supply and demand issue. You want to provide a press release that is engaging and speaks to journalists in sort of an objective journalistic tone, but sort of puts the meat out there of, hey, this is why this press release is important to you, and this is the value of of our service or our product offering, and why your audience will find it engaging or interesting. It's one of those things where a newspaper will cover a particular product, but they probably will steer you more towards advertising if it's something that's not very unique or novel. And there's lots of ways of overcoming that by presenting your product, which may seem an average or ordinary product, and sort of make it engaging and timely so that they will see it as something that is more article worthy than, say, advertising worthy. We just had Father's Day, and one of the things that journalists love is sort of like a roundup of good products that would be, great gift ideas for dad. And so if you have a product that is, a really clever or fun or interesting product, you kind of want to position that to the journalist, in times for Father's Day or any type of event or things like that. And one of the things that we are pretty good at, and our writers are pretty good at, is taking something that might be pretty, ordinary, and sort of positioning it in a unique way. Sometimes it's talking about the founder or the person who created the product. That might be the interesting angle to take. We did that with a gift website once with someone who was previously a personal assistant to Cher, and they actually got their seed capital from Cher to start her company. And while it was like a pretty generic, I felt it was a pretty generic gift website, there were some unique things about it. I felt the unique angle would be to work the Cher angle, especially if we could get some quotes from Cher in the release. And she was very willing to do that because, she was, really like an angel investor in this website. And
so you were able to combine the product or your client's information with the Cher company.
Yeah, and we were really sort of scratching our heads trying to figure out what angle to take with this website and this company. And then the person mentioned as an aside, I don't know if this is important, but, one of my investors is my old employer, Cher. And I was like, share this thing, and she goes, yeah. And I said, wow, do you think we could get a quote from her? Because I really think that would be, a really strong angle to do. And the client wasn't even aware that, something like that would be important. Unfortunately, we live in a entertainment-centric society where name dropping and things like that really can, snowball, press coverage. And so those are the type of things that you might want to tap into. And of course, everybody doesn't have a famous celebrity behind them, but they might have a really intriguing story. It might be two sisters who started a website, and one was overcoming a personal tragedy or an illness or something like that. Other angles might be what makes your gift website stand out more than others.
Yeah, so everybody's got a story, and what you're talking about, like we're talking about a press release now that would maybe announce the launch of a business, for example.
Right.
And so you have to figure out what your story is, and for people who aren't used to doing that, they're so used to focusing on their products. It's really important to take a step back, isn't it, and sort of try to be objective and see what it is about your business besides your products that would attract anybody to want to learn more about you, right?
Right. And, there's people behind every company and every website, and so many small businesses try to hide behind that. They try to hide behind the company name. They don't want to mention their name in the press release. They don't want to have a quote in the press release because they feel that something like that sort of limits them or makes them seem small. But in reality, journalists are attracted to individuals and individual stories. Journalists are, journalists want to help others, but they also want to provide a captivating story to their audience. And if you pick up, a newspaper or even a rag publication you see on the newsstands, a lot of them are ones that are basically human interest. And so, one of the things that I want a lot of small business owners to not shy away from is considering the human interest element of their company or their website, and not discount that. It may not apply to everyone, but it's one of the things that I see many times that people don't want to do is, well, I don't want you to mention my name. I don't want you to mention, have me as a quote because, I'm the CEO and founder, but, we're only a two-person or one-person company, and I feel, it may come across as being really tiny. And that's not necessarily true. Some of the angles that we've had the most success with are those that actually talked about that one individual or that one person launching their company and telling their story and their side of things.
It's interesting that you mention that. I've been interviewed on occasion by journalists who have actually spent more time on that point than anything else, and sometimes it's because they want to start their own business too.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. The conversation kind of ends with, gee, can I give you a call sometime and get more information about how you did that?
Right.
Don't tell my editor. But that's really, really important. I'm so glad you said that, too, because it means that no matter where you are in your business, anybody who's listening to this show, you have a story and you can figure out a way to tell it, to make it interesting to people. So once you kind of figure out what it is that you want to say in your release, whether it's launching your business or, let's say, a holiday's coming up and you have the perfect product to give as a gift, what are the nuts and bolts, Mickie? Are there like 5 or 6 components to a good press release that you need to include?
Yeah. You want to make sure that you sort of address the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
That sounds like a mantra from my journalism classes in college.
Exactly. It's the basic tenets of journalism, and it's a good idea that in any article or story that you write for someone that those issues are addressed, like who's issuing the press release, what's the press release about, when the timeliness of it, the where, why, and how, and those tenets sort of hold true for the press release as they do for an actual article that's being written. And you definitely want to make sure that you write a release that's concise, well written, factual, honest, and timely. And sometimes the timely factor is one thing that you can do with a press release to sort of jumpstart it. If you have a dieting website or you've written a book about dieting or fitness, there's really no better time to issue that press release than, say, middle of November, early November, right before New Year's, because New Year's, so many newspapers and magazines are, talking about, the New Year's resolutions. Here's ways to lose weight. Here's ways to jumpstart things like that. But there's also opportunities that people don't think about. June is big wedding month, so a lot of brides are trying to fit into their gowns. So you can sort of take that same press release and craft it for the bridal and wedding magazine audience, as well as women's magazine audience for trying to fit into the bikinis for summer. And there's a lot of different ways to take a single press release or a single idea and sort of reformat it for different opportunities. And we did that with a company that was basically teetering on bankruptcy once, that had developed umbrellas that attached to golf carts. And he thought it was just, a brilliant idea. And a lot of people have golf carts; they already have a hood over them. So, it didn't really work out very well. But I said, hey, this sounds like it would be really useful to put on wheelchairs. And so we drafted a press release for the disabled market, sent it out, and it was a huge success. I think that he said in as little as 3 or 4 months that like 80-90% of all of his sales were coming from people who are looking at it for the disabled market.
Wow. So there's another benefit to working with a professional press release or a publicist like you, right? You might even...
There's lots of ways to reposition. Yeah, there's lots of opportunities for repositioning your product for different audiences. And
it probably didn't require that manufacturer to do much to change things.
No, it was able to snap on to, work with most wheelchairs right out of the box.
Wow, that's great.
A lot of people found that really beneficial.
That's a great story. When we come back, Mickie, we're going to talk about the who, what, where, when, why, and how a little more specifically, and also talk about distribution issues. Once you have a press release, it doesn't do any good to let it just sit around. You have to figure out what to do with it. For those of you listening out there who have questions or comments about maybe press releases you've written, or maybe how to position your product or service in the media, the telephone number to call with your question is 800-773-0355. This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning their new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO Show, everyone. We're here talking to Mickie Kennedy, who is an expert in the topic of writing and distributing press releases. And Mickie, before we took our break, we were talking about the who, what, where, when, why, and how of writing a press release. So let's just kind of give ourselves maybe that client. Let's maybe have a mythical client, a gift registry, like you mentioned before, maybe for brides. And, let's just kind of walk through and say, what would we do, if we wanted to target a launch press release for them? And by the way, for those of you who have questions about your own press release issues, 800-773-0355 is the number to call and get some expert assistance. So, Mickie, what's that who, what, where, when, why, and how thing?
Okay. Well, you mentioned sort of a bridal gift registry service. So the who would be both the company itself, who's being talked about here, It may be actual key people within the company if we do want to talk about the founders or have quotes from people at the actual gift registry.
Okay.
Another side of the who is who's the audience of the press release. And of course, for press releases, it's generally the media and journalists. The what is what's being announced here. And if it's a launch, it's a launch of a new product or service. Let's say it's internet-based, but let's say it also ties into other e-commerce websites, which is really unique. The when, of course, is generally most of the time you issue a press release after the company is launched or the day of the launch. It used to not always be that way. There were e-commerce companies back a few years ago that would send out releases before they launched, and so it would give magazines, including monthlies, time to include a story about them about the same time that they launch, and monthlies generally have a longer lead time. However, there were lots of magazines that had companies on the cover and in the actual publication that postponed their launch, so it created a really embarrassing situation for a lot of magazines. So a lot of magazines generally don't prefer to write about a launch of a company or website until they've actually looked at the website or been allowed to sort of view the ways in which it works.
That's a really good point. Can we stop for a second there and focus on that for just a second?
Sure.
Because a lot of people don't think about that from a journalist perspective. I know we have a small magazine, and I received an inquiry and a product for potential review, and I went to the company's website to see the product and get more information about it, and it wasn't there. Right. And I emailed the company, and I was told that they had taken the product off the website because they were redoing their product line, and that was one of the ones that they thought would be going. And then, at the end of the email response, he said something like, but if you're going to put it in the magazine, I'll put it back at the website. And I thought, well, gee, if my magazine's not coming out for 4 more months and you change your mind again, 4 months is a long time for a new business to wait to finally see their product in print, with no guarantee that it's going to make it to the final copy anyway. And does that put, can you talk a little bit about that perspective that journalists have to come? This is really important for small businesses to understand.
Right. There are so many different types of websites, and some are a little more sophisticated and have a lot more meat behind them than others.
Uh-huh.
And so journalists want to be able to take a look at a website and the functionality of a website before they write about it. There used to be a lot of exceptions because journalists wanted to write about something, and sort of announce it at the same time that you went live. And that still happens today, but less so with e-commerce and websites, because even multi-million-dollar companies who've planned launches have pulled back their launch because they found at last minute things just don't work, or they didn't get all the bugs out, so they just postponed the launch.
Right.
And it creates a real embarrassing situation. There was a Scandinavian fashion company that postponed its launch by originally a few weeks, then 6 months, then 9 months. And 9 months prior to that, it was on the cover of, I think, Forbes magazine and several other websites announcing the launch of it. So it created a really embarrassing situation in which these people had published information about the company and the website, and talking to its viewers as if it's live, and of course it wasn't. And so, and that company had so many hundreds of millions of dollars behind it. I think the journalists felt really confident that it would launch.
Right.
And so what they found is that there are problems like that creep into things, and that there have been websites that have gone live and just found out that while it worked great for a few people, once 100 or 1,000 people were logged into it, it just did not work for that number of people, so they pulled the website.
Oh.
And so you really want to make sure that your website is live and the bugs have been tweaked out of it, and that all the writing is correct, and that it's basically a finished product. Some people will create a back door for journalists to log in during a period in which they haven't publicly launched, in which journalists can test the functionality, see what's involved, look at the products and offerings, and that is a possible solution. And journalists, do use that. But I know that journalists generally prefer to have something that has actually gone live, or when they visit, they can test out the functionality and see what it's about.
Right. Okay. Great great point that we made there. Thank you for that. So once you get through your who, what, when, and what about the where, the why, and the how?
Okay. The where would be, for a lot of small businesses, the where is usually a website. Sometimes it is an actual storefront. If a company is launching, their latest, opening in, say, Nashville, Tennessee, that would be the where.
Mm-hmm.
The why would be, why is this important? And hopefully that's covered in the actual press release of, we're announcing our, 10,000th customer and we're giving away a free, car or something like that. And why is this important? It's because, we've reached a milestone that we feel is important, and we hope that your viewers will feel it's important, or readers will feel it's important as well.
Right.
And the how, of course, is, it basically explained in the release that, we have reached an agreement with this company, or that we've, opened a store. This is where it's located, where, it's our X amount of store, it's our, X amount of years in business, things like that. And you basically want to make sure that all of those things are addressed in the press release. Some, of course, are a little more important than others. The key points that I think is, having something that's well written. One of the biggest, red flags for journalists is seeing press releases that are grammatically incorrect and have lots of typos and mistakes in it.
Okay.
It sort of gives the journalist the impression that you don't care enough to develop a message that's professional and well written. Then maybe this isn't really a company that takes its image very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Other things are factual. You'll see some amateurs and people who are new to press releases use things that are sort of non-qualified, like we're the best and the cheapest, or lots of things like that without qualifying it. Mm-hmm. Some of that is allowed because you are sort of crafting your message, but generally those things are kept in quotes attributed to people, and you generally would prefer to show them why you are the best. In a recent survey, or we've looked at other companies that offer similar products, and we're the cheapest, because that also includes like a free warranty, or also includes live customer service, or things along those lines. And journalists want to see those qualifications. They won't necessarily go to your website to research your product. You want to make sure that the key highlights of why you're the most important are touched on in your press release. Sometimes I've gotten press releases that are just basically a paragraph long, and they're about a product, and they basically expect the journalist to go to the website to basically then find the product on the website and then find out what the features are. You've got a press release, you've got a message in front of the media. It's really important to highlight those things and include the important features in the press release, and not to expect the journalist to sort of hunt or have to do a couple of steps to find out that information.
Mm-hmm. And how about length of a press release, Mickie? Is there a guideline?
There is. Most press releases should be concise and not too wordy. Most press releases are under 400 words. There are exceptions, of course. Financial statements and press releases that are hugely important, like you just announced a merger or partnership with Microsoft or a really huge company, you might want to have more words in that case, because there'll be a paragraph about Microsoft, a paragraph about your company, a paragraph of quotes, and it can get really lengthy. But by and large, most press releases should be under 500 words. Is the key word count that I use. 400-word press releases is probably the average.
Mm-hmm. 400 words. Okay, and that doesn't include the sort of the canned information at the end about the company?
It generally does include that.
It does. 400 words. Okay.
And
so just a couple of paragraphs, basically.
Yeah. It's usually 4 to 6 paragraphs. I think falls within that. I guess the important thing is, concision. You want anything that's in there to matter and have a reason for being there. You don't necessarily want to spend, 3 paragraphs talking about why this product is so great. And, sometimes incorporating customer testimonials into a press release is great, but you don't necessarily want like a listing of 12 people saying basically the same thing. This product is great, says Genial of such and such.
Right, because you can put all that at your website.
Exactly. And, sometimes the testimonials can be useful, especially if it's someone who's recognized in the industry. If you have an industry expert that speaks out about your product or about your service, that the media will probably recognize, or key people in the industry would recognize. You might want to incorporate that into the press release. But if it's someone that you don't know, like just a person in a particular city who purchased your product, you probably would want to keep that on your website and not necessarily in the press release. I have seen some people use it to sort of fill out a press release, and I wouldn't say that it doesn't belong, but I definitely feel that if you have other information to highlight, that would probably, I think, would belong there more so than just an actual client testimonial.
Okay, unless it's like the fabulous famous movie star of the day.
Exactly. Or if the quote is just so good that it's not an empty quote where this company is the best and this product just rocks. But say this product is really beneficial because it addresses this, and this. Basically, the quote has a lot of meat to it, and you could see that quote being lifted and inserted into an article about the company, and that's real important. If you're including a quote, you want the quote to have some resonance so that you could see a journalist lifting that quote and actually inserting it into the story that they're writing.
Right.
A lot of quotes a lot of quotes that I see of press releases that aren't that well written don't really pass that test. The quote is so sort of limp and it doesn't have the resonance to sort of really speak to an audience. So the likelihood that a journalist will use it is relatively low.
Wow, there's a whole lot that goes into it. So, one time, Mickie, I saw a press release issued by a company, I can't remember who it was, but one of the late-night talk show hosts, I can't remember which one, who has, like, those bloopers from magazines and newspapers across the country.
Right.
Shares with people, like a typo in the magazine ad that makes it hilarious. And this one company had that happen to them. So I don't remember exactly what it was, but they had been featured on that blooper, so they issued a press release about it and said, our company was featured on, the late night talk show.
Right.
And I mean, they had written literally like an entire page about it.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, we are going to come right back, and rather than hear more funny stories from me, Mickie is going to tell us a little bit about, once that release is done, how do you distribute it? This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. We'll be right back.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO Show. We're here with Mickie Kennedy of eReleases, and he's been sharing some great information with us. And we're going to talk in a few seconds about how to distribute a press release. I want to let you guys know, in the way of a program note, what's coming up later on this month on the Lifestyle CEO Show. On June 26th, next week, we've got Marcia Yudkin, a former New York Times reporter and the author of 6 Steps to Free Publicity. She's going to be talking with me about, how to get free publicity. So that's a show you don't want to miss. A couple of weeks after that, we've got Debbie Whale, who is the blogging expert. And I got to tell you, in July, we're going to be focusing on whipping your website into shape. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is, of course, website design, how to do an online newsletter correctly. And also, Debbie is going to be here to talk to us about what a blog is, whether you need a blog, and once you have a blog, how do you use it to build your business and brand awareness. So we hope you tune in for those shows. You can visit the Lifestyle CEO website and get more information. So, Mickie, we have drafted our press release, and we're looking at this beautifully written, typo-free document. and we're going, gee, that was fun. Now what do I do?
Yeah, you've got a press release, and now you're sort of at a loss as to what to do with it. And what you don't want to do with it is just paralysis to set in. And I actually have this happen where clients will come and pay for us to write and distribute their press release, and we've just never distributed their press release. I'll email them and say, hey, are you ready to schedule a release? And they're like, no, I need more time. They get fearful of either success or failure, and nothing really happens.
Really?
Yeah, and I've had that happen, more times than I would like for it to happen.
Now, these are people who have already paid you to draft the release for them?
Yeah, we have a combo service where we draft a release and we distribute it. And we draft the release, they love it, and they really just are never ready to hit the trigger. And sometimes I've had people say that they're afraid that they'll get inundated with too many orders or too many calls.
I think that's what a great problem to have for a small business.
Right, and it's something I've seen with a lot of small businesses who are just afraid, and I've had people like that who just are afraid to the point where eventually they go out of business. I think the important thing is that it's going out to the media. If you are contacted, it will be by the media for more information. The media is not going to contact you, or at least I've only seen the media do it 5 or 6 times, contact you to say, hey, we're going to write a story about you. I don't need any more information. I just wanted to reach out to you and let you know that. I would love for that to happen a lot, but it doesn't. Generally, the journalists will only reach out to you and contact you if they need clarification or if they have more information that they want to get from you. And sometimes it's they're working a story with a different angle, and maybe they want you to talk about that your product or service or company in context with that different angle.
Right.
But the thing that you want to do with your press release when you're ready to get it out is sort of look at your options. And the biggest factor driving, I guess, the distribution is the cost. If you have absolutely no budget, the thing to do is to distribute the release yourself, and that's doing a little bit of research and contacting the media by phone, by fax, by email, and trying to get the press release to them. One of the things that you don't want to do is hound a journalist to death and say, hey, I emailed your release, did you get it? Journalists get so much information that they're not going to respond, or if they do, they're not going to respond favorably to those type of requests. The same thing with telephone calls. There are ways to position a telephone call in which you're saying, hi, my name's so-and-so, and I was just following up about a press release that I faxed or emailed you. Maybe you didn't receive it, but here is like a 30-second clip of why my product or service is really important to you, and would you like me to email or fax that press release over to you again? You don't want to put journalists on the defense by saying, did you receive my press release? There's just very few journalists, I think, that can answer that question when they pick up the phone or get an email, because there's just literally thousands of press releases that go out daily.
So you're saying when you do follow up, Mickie, you're not saying don't follow up. You're just saying there's a way to do it.
Exactly. You want to be tactful and not put journalists on the defense.
Okay, so the answer isn't don't follow up at all. The answer is follow up with just, I sent it to you, here's the 30-second blurb, would you like for me to send it to you again?
Right, rather than a follow-up, sort of position it as a pitch, almost like a cold pitch, but you can just sort of state that, hey, I sent you a press release last week, I know you're pretty busy, you may or may not have seen it, but here, my name's, Mickie Kennedy, and I'm calling from eReleases, and I'm wanting to talk to you about our affordable press release service. Mm-hmm. And we feel it's really important to your audience because, there are small business owners who are on a budget and they're looking for an affordable way to get their message out in front of the media.
Right,
and
right.
I'd love to take the opportunity to maybe send you over my contact information with a copy of that same press release just for you to review again.
Okay.
And, schedule a time if you'd like to talk.
Well, maybe that scares people more than anything else. It's kind of easy to hit the send key on email. It's harder to pick up the phone and follow up. But it must be really important because if the journalists are that busy, you're not going to hear from them if, probably unless they got your release and went, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
It is a game of odds. I mean, a successful press release that's distributed may only, yield 3 or 5 pickups, and that's considered a good success. there are, unfortunately, more press releases that go out with really no real pickup in the magazines or newspapers or trade publications and things like that. And that's the ugly reality of press releases and PR. Is not easy. If it was, the journalists, the PR firms wouldn't be charging so much money to sort of, represent you, and they themselves not promise any coverage. It used to be that if you signed a 6-month or a 1-year contract with a PR firm, back 10, 15 years ago, many of them would promise usually one national newspaper or, media mention and one trade publication. And it's gotten where I haven't seen a contract in a long time that's made that promise. A lot of them, basically, you could spend $70,000-$80,000 on a PR effort and really get no press. It can happen. The type of things that you want to do is to do everything right, so that if you have spent $80,000 and you've gotten a media message, you've given it your best. And for whatever reason, your company just doesn't lend itself well to PR. I don't think that there are too many companies for which that applies, but that might be a sad reality for a few.
So when you're ready to distribute, do you suggest, we have like 1 more minute to go, do you suggest going to your own backyard, or how do you choose where to send it?
Yeah, basically you want to educate yourself on who are the journalists that are interested in your message.
Okay.
You don't want to send something to newsroom@WashingtonPost.com, but if you're a technology company who's introduced a new gaming console for online gamers, you want to speak to the technology editors and gaming editors who write about that. And it's real easy. You can pick up the Washington Post or read it online and see who are the people that write about that. It might only be a handful, like 6 or 8, and you want to make sure that you reach out to all of those people. It takes a bit of research. It takes a little bit of work, but it's not firing into the dark and just hoping that something sticks.
Right, that sounds like the best way to go. You do your homework ahead of time, and I bet the journalists appreciate that because you demonstrate that you know who they are and you're not just shooting in the dark. How can we get in touch with you and learn more about your services, Mickie?
You can contact me directly at ereleases.com.
Okay.
And if you just go to www.ereleases.com and click on Contact Us on the bottom of any page, there's contact information to our office here. You can also shoot an email, and there's a contact form there as well. There's lots of tips on the website under PR Fuel, which is our newsletter and blog about PR.
Oh, good. So we can subscribe to your newsletter?
That's correct.
Excellent. Okay. All right, ereleases.com. Thank you, Mickie. I appreciate your time and the wealth of information you shared. I mean, the importance of the things you were talking about cannot be understated. Thank you for joining us today. For those out there, don't forget to visit Mickie's website at ereleases.com. Join me next week when our guest will be Marcia Yudkin, former New York Times reporter and the author of a book about how to get free publicity. You got to join me for that, guys, and gear yourselves up with paper and pen to take notes. Visit my website at lifestyleceo.com to listen to all of our shows and also to order my new book, The Lifestyle CEO Book. I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you next week with Marcia Ludkin. In the meantime, break all the rules, build your own corporate ladder, and create the life you love.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.